Hello everybody, my name is Connor and I am here with a purple yellow CROC deck profile. I was going to do this with my actual cards, but I thought it might be easier to do it on the sim, so we are looking at my list, the list that I played on the channel, and I'll make sure those videos are linked somewhere if you missed them. We're looking at that on the sim here, and yeah, I'm gonna go over my list. I'm gonna talk about what I look for in my opening hand and some other cards you can play. And just as a side note here, I am not the greatest One Piece player. I am still learning, I am still growing. That being said, if you play Purple Yellow CROC and you disagree with something I say or want to add something, please go ahead, comment down below. I was hoping to kind of make this like a community effort type of deal. But this is what I've done. This is how I've found some success with Purple Yellow CROC at my locals. I was able to finally win one of my locals, which was really cool, because I am a bit of a newer player who hasn't won a locals until I found this deck. So let's dive into it, and we're going to talk about the deck. Purple Yellow CROC, his ability, if you don't know, is when you, on opponent's turn, when you return Dawn from your field to the Dawn deck through one of your effects, add one Dawn from your Dawn deck as active. I really like this effect. When I first tried to make this good, I think back in OP05, I think is when I tried to play it. He felt good, but he felt like he was missing something, and I think that EB01 has really given him the support he needs to make him a viable deck. I don't know what tier he's in, but I definitely feel like he is a viable deck now, and he's very fun. So some of the cards that EB01 added here is Miss Wednesday. She's a blocker, which is super nice. She's got 1k, and on opponent's attack, which doesn't mean, unlike the film purple Uta blocker, this is on opponent's attack. You don't have to block. It's not on block, which makes Miss Wednesday like such a strong card. On opponent's attack, Dawn -1. If your leader's type includes Baroque works, add up to one Dawn card from your Dawn deck and set it as active. You do that with CROC effect, you're getting 2 Dawn back. It's a pretty solid option. I really like the Miss Wednesday card, and the fact that she is a blocker and you can use her ability without blocking is massive. Definitely added to CROC's power here. Speaking of adding with EB01 to CROC's power, Mr. 2 Bon Clay, honestly, this card is going to be a staple in every purple deck from the future on. Like, you cannot tell me it's not. It's such a powerful card. It's a 1k counter, which is great. On play, add up to 1 Dawn from your Dawn deck as active. That's key, as active. So, you know, you're on 4 Dawn, you drop it, you go to 5 Dawn, you get the Dawn active, you attach the leader, swing 6, just kind of sets you up for plays like that. And when attacking, choose one of your opponent's characters. This character has the same base power as a chosen character this turn. Let's say you're playing Purple Luffy, for instance. They drop Kaido, they don't get rid of Bon Clay. Well, next turn, guess what? Your Bon Clay, he's also 10k. You've got, you know, your own little Kaido here. Of course, on your opponent's turn, he drops back down to 1,000. But with Bon Clay, I feel like if he gets the Dawn out, he's done his job. If he gets a swing in, it's been worth it. He's done his job. He's done great. You know, that's pretty good. Most people will absolutely get rid of your Bon Clay as fast as they can, if they are going to be dropping big cards, especially. The next card is from OP04, which is the 8 cost 9k powered Crocodile. This card is so good. It is literally like Yamato in a way, where, except with this card, you don't have to be at 1 life to gain a life. On play, Dawn -2. If your leader type includes Baroque works, place up to 1 card from the top of your deck to the top of your life. So no matter what amount of life you're at, you can gain life with CROC. It's so good. And then on top of that, when opponent attacks once per turn, you can minus a Dawn, draw 1 card from draw 1 card, and then trash 1 card from your hand. So it gets dead cards out of your hand and gets you ideally more counters, more events, things like that into your hand. And then with, you know, CROC ability, for instance, you get a Dawn back, so you can use some of your events down here. Now Miss Valentine is a searcher. She's a 1K searcher, a Baroque Works type searcher. I like playing the Baroque Works version of the deck. There are a couple other versions that don't run like the Baroque Works like core, but I love Baroque Works. I love Alabasta, not gonna lie. It's still to this day one of my favorite arcs. Just really loved it. So I like this version of the deck. It's what works for me, but we'll talk about some other versions later. Yeah, so she just searches Baroque Works, and she can grab herself. Some searchers can't grab, themselves if they find themselves in a search, but she can, which is great. This card is not strictly, but mostly in here for a 2K. Mr. 13, Miss Friday, it is a searchable 2K, but in rare instances, and I don't think I've ever used it to a point where it benefited me more than having the 2K, you can trash this and one of your other Baroque Works characters and ramp it on. I think I used it in my game versus Anel, and I don't feel like it was worth it. Back before we had like Bon Clay and Miss Wednesday, it was one of the extra ways CROC could ramp, but I prefer to have him in my hand as a 2K. And speaking of searchable 2Ks, we have Miss Doublefinger. Miss Doublefinger is a searchable 2K. I only play her out if I get her on trigger. Trigger is Dawn -1. Play this card. On play, you may trash one card from your hand, add one Dawn card from your Dawn deck, and rest it. Since it's your opponent's turn and you're activating the trigger by minusing a Dawn, you get that Dawn with CROC abilities. So a little bit of ramp, but searchable 2K is really nice. Now we're getting into some of the cards that aren't Baroque Works. Like we have Katakuri here. I like Katakuri. I can only afford 2 Katakuris currently. I'm hoping they go down in price when they do some of those reprinted cards, but Katakuri is one of those cards that I feel can definitely be replaced, and we'll talk about other cards that you can add into the deck if you want a little bit later in the video. But yeah, Katakuri is just nice. You get to put an 8 cost or less on top or bottoms of the owner's life area face up. So for you can put one of your 8 costs or less with trigger. You can put your Miss Valentine up there if you're really worried. You can put Kikinojo up there. You can put your beige. Why you play beige on the field, I don't know, but if you're in a really sticky situation, that's a possibility. Honestly, really solid card. I like having it. You can also get rid of your opponent's Gecko Moiras. You can get rid of your opponent's I know in my game versus RP Law, I played it and I put the 5-cost kid blocker at the bottom of his life, so he was not able to ramp get active Dawn back with that. So it definitely can help, but it's definitely one of those cards I feel like is not needed. As far as needed cards go, I don't feel like Capone is needed, but Capone is so good in any yellow deck, you're going to see me running him. He's a 2K counter if you don't get him in life, and if you do get him in life, that's incredible. Up to one of your opponent's leaders or characters cannot attack during this turn. I know there are at least 10 of you in the comments right now who have lost a game to Capone. I know I have. It's a pain in the ass, but we got to use what we got to our advantage. We also are running the 9-cost Yamato. This card is wonderful. On KO or on play, KO one of your opponent's characters with a cost that is equal or less than the total life you and your opponent has. Then if you have 1 or less life, you may add up to 1 card from the top of your deck to your life area. I know in my game versus Anel, I was trying really hard to have both Anel and I at 7 life, because if I dropped Yamato, I could have KO'd a 7-drop bomb, which would have been very cool. Granted, it didn't work out like that, unfortunately, but this card is really good for getting rid of, smaller bodies and sometimes even bigger bodies, but just getting rid of something that is hard to get rid of. Unfortunately, I know I struggle getting rid of, almost on any deck I play, getting rid of, Borsellino's. It can't KO Borsellino because Borsellino is Borsellino. It can't be KO'd by effects, but anything else, really, it can KO. Now, we've got Kikinojo in here. I really like Kikinojo in all my yellow decks just because I feel like it's such a good, the trigger is so good, and I just really feel like she's a strong card. Kikinojo is a 4-cost 6k body. And then on KO, if your opponent's life is 3 or less, place the top card from your deck on the top of your life. This card is great. And the trigger is if your opponent's life is a 3 or less, play this card. So if you get this on trigger, like, it's so good. It's so good. And a lot of times people aren't really going to want to swing into Kikinojo if they can avoid it because they don't want you to life. Sometimes they will take her out just knowing they have to, because that's at least 6k coming at them every turn if they leave it up. It's something that I know I've personally struggled with, but it's just a solid card. And then if you are playing purple yellow Croc and you are having trouble, people are not swinging into Kikinojo, you need that life. Well, now we have the new event. It's in English, I think in paper it's O Come My Way, but this is O Come Away. It's a counter. Don -1. If your leader has Baroque works in its types, choose one of your characters. It becomes the target of attack. So your leader, let's say you're playing purple Luffy, because that's what I'm playing right now, so he's on my mind. You're playing purple Luffy, he's got Kaido. He swings Kaido into your character, or into your leader here. You can use this card to Don -1, pay the 1 to activate it minus your Don, and then redirect it into Kikinojo. They just hit Kikinojo. Kikinojo's dead. You gain a life. Everybody's happy. Just something I personally really like this combo, and we'll talk about some more like combos that people have talked about and you can do, but this is my favorite combo right here. And honestly, this, using O Come Away into Croc or Yamato just to basically have their attacks be non-effective is so nice. Now, another event card I personally run is Blast Breath. It's a 1 Dawn card. I look for events for this deck that are 1 Dawn just because with Croc ability and the tools I have, I should at least be able to have 1 Dawn. So I have 1 Dawn, or I've got Blast Breath because it's a counter card, Dawn -1. Your leader or one of your characters gets 4,000 power during this battle. I feel like 4,000 is just a good number, and it's honestly like one of my favorite purple counters. So when I was trying to build my deck, that's kind of what I settled on, was the Blast Breath. I have 2 of the 2 million volts Amaru. I just feel like this event is really good, and I know there is one game where I was able to Amaru up my Miss Valentine, and I was able to swing the final kill with the Amaru Valentine and an extra Dawn. If you don't know what it does, up to one of your leaders or characters gains 3,000 power this turn. Then if your life is 1 card or less, rest up to your opponent's characters with a 4 cost or less. This card is so good. If your opponent, you've got 1 life, your opponent has a Borsalino, you can rest the Borsalino. You can rest almost every blocker in the game except Kid, Queen, Sabo. Those are the 3 I can think of off the top of my head. Of course, I'm sure I'm missing some, so post them down below, but I'm only running 2 because I feel like anymore it was kind of too much, and I dropped 1 to add another O Come Away, and I feel like it just feels so much better. And my last event card is something I'm kind of on the fence about. Part of me, I could drop, or I feel like I could change out, but I do like the trigger in the arrow here. The trigger is you may trash 2 cards from your hand, place up to 1 card from the top of your deck to your life area, the same as 2 million volts, just kind of those life gain effects here. And then if you have 2 or less cards in your life area, give up to one of your opponent's leaders or characters minus 3,000 power during this turn. So for instance, I run this card when I play an L because I always want to be around 2 to 1 life, and with an L, it's perfect. That's what you want, as opposed to L Thor. L Thor is if your opponent is at that little life, which doesn't always happen. But with Croc, I did find that this card, I got it a lot when I wasn't under 2 life, so it was kind of a dead card in my hand. When I was able to use it, it does minus 3,000 power to an opponent, which is very useful, but with the minusing, with being at less life, with this deck where you're gaining life constantly, there may be some other counters that you personally want to run. I think out of the list I have, this is one of the only things I would really tweak myself. maybe run L4, maybe the 0 cost event, but yeah, so that's the list that I was running with on my videos, and we are going to actually take a moment to talk about what I personally look for in my opening hand, and some cards I think are really good for your opening hand. Okay, so in our purple yellow crocodile build, these are the cards I personally look for in my opening hand. Of course, there may be more, there may be less. If you guys feel free to comment down below, add on. I definitely want to hear what you guys think as well. But when I was playing, and I have my cat Vi here, so sorry about that, but when I was playing, these are cards I like to see in my opening hand. I'm gonna actually start over here with Miss Valentine. She's a searcher. She can find you anything it says her specifically. It says look at the 5 cards and reveal 1 card with Baroque works in one of its types. So she can grab Baroque Works cards, but she can also grab former Baroque Works cards. It was something that was kind of discussed at the beginning, but she can in fact grab it because it includes Baroque Works. So just if your hand is looking rough, maybe you got all yellow cards and you're not sure if you want a mulligan, or you don't have another mulligan, if you have Miss Valentine in your hand, you can find almost all the cards I look for in my opening hand, which this one I think is the one I really want in my opening hand, the Miss Wednesday. You can play her, she's 3 Dawn, so at least on turn, your second turn, you're dropping her and you're immediately starting to ramp. If you can't find, she's not in your opening hand, you got Miss Valentine, boom, she's Baroque Works, it's great. I definitely know that games where I don't have Miss Wednesday, I ramp significantly slower, or if I don't get her early. So this is probably one of the top cards I look for. The other one is, of course, Clay, Mr. 2, just because of his ability. And if he stays on the board, maybe you play him when they don't have a ton on board and you just don't swing with him and they don't have removal. If he stays on the board, as soon as they drop a bigger character, you are hitting them right back with this bigger character. So he doesn't get there a lot. I feel like a lot of people prioritize getting rid of him, especially like RP Law doesn't have to do anything to get rid of him. So understandable, they will do that immediately. Another card I don't mind seeing in my opening hand is Crocodile, because I know it will get me to a cycle and it will heal me. So sometimes if I start with a Crocodile in my hand, and like for instance the arrow where I have to be at 2 life or less, I will go ahead and take life a little more freely, because I know I can gain it with Crocodile, I can gain it back with Yamato. Of course, if I am playing that way and I start to realize maybe I'm not getting life, maybe I don't see any other Crocs or Yamatos or any other way to heal, it's still pretty good because it can get you to cycle through your cards. So you can discard the Bon Clay when you're at 10 Dawn, and for ideally like something good that you pull off the top of your deck. If that makes sense, I hope that makes sense. And the last card I don't mind seeing in my opening hand is Okama Way. Just having the option to redirect, and then of course it is Dawn -1, which works with your leader ability. Yeah, it just works really nicely, and it's a way to I know I've Okama Way'd into like Miss Valentine, for instance, if they are swinging at my Bon Clay or my my Miss Wednesday or whatever, just redirecting the attack into something less crucial to your board state is very useful. So that's personally what I look for in my opening hand. It's mostly Baroque Works cards, especially Miss Wednesday. I want to see Miss Wednesday in my hand. I don't mind seeing Croc or Yamato, some way to heal, but preferably Croc. Searcher is always nice because, I feel like when you play decks with Searchers, you're always looking for the Searcher. But that is what I personally look for in my opening hand. Of course, if you guys think I missed anything like that, comment down below. And then now we are going to go ahead and talk about some of the stuff that you can use to fill in your deck if you don't have certain cards or just want some more options. Okay, so I have a couple of options here, and I can see already I'm missing one. Let me let me go ahead and bring up this. So we'll talk here about, there it goes. So purple yellow croc, we have Magellan. Magellan is a great option for Okama. I know there are a handful of people who run the Okama with Magellan, and on opponent's turn, when this character is KO'd, your opponent returns 2 of their Dawn onto the field to their Dawn deck. That is a pretty decent setback for most decks. Throws them off their curve, throws them off whatever play they wanted to do. So if you can use Okama to redirect an attack, maybe they want to leave Magellan up, they swing big at Croc, and you redirect it into Magellan. That definitely puts a damper on a lot of things. Another Baroque Works card that I've seen get a little more traction, but mostly in RP Law, is Miss All Sunday. 5 cost, 5k body, no counter. On play, add up to 1 rested Dawn to your cost area, and if you have 6 or more Dawn, draw a card. So kind of gets you more cards in your hand, which is not a bad thing with Croc, and it gets you another extra Dawn, which is pretty good. I did put Katakuri in here, and we'll talk about Cracker in a second. I did put Katakuri in here. He's an option. You can play him. I feel like he can be easily replaced with some other things. I've seen a couple lists with Cracker. I think that it's not a bad choice. It's especially if you get it out of trigger or out of life. If you get him in hand, I feel like most of the decks where I play Cracker, I just use him as a counter if he's in my hand. But if I get him out of life, that applies a lot of pressure, especially if you're playing a deck that is kind of rushing you down and is hurting. I feel like Cracker is a good option. I also put Denjiro in here. If your opponent's life is at 3 or less, this character cannot be KO'd by effects. Dawn times 2 becomes a pretty solid attacker. If your opponent's life at 3 or less, play this card. I just feel like triggers like that are really solid in this meta. When most leaders are 4-cost leaders now, so you get one hit in, and all of these types of characters can be played out of life. Speaking of those types of characters, Nekomamushi. I like Nekomamushi. He's not searchable, obviously, in this set, but is an option. And he can attack my opponent's active characters if I add 2 Dawn, which is definitely nice. It's a great way to attack into blockers if you want those gone, or just attack into some larger bodies. So I have a reject in here. It is getting banned super soon, but reject is an option. One of your opponent's 5 costs or lower, or if your opponent has 1 life, deal 1 damage to them. It's a good option for the EB01 meta, but in OP07, reject is banned, which is understandable. And then I have seen a couple decks run Soul Focus, which your opponent chooses one of the following effects: trash 1 life card from the top of the opponent's life area, put 1 card from the top of your deck onto the top of your life area. It is basically 7 Mom, which, speaking of 7 Mom, I have seen some decks run 7 Mom here, which is the same effect as Soul Focus. It just gives you a 8k body, which is pretty solid. Honestly, I don't feel like that is a bad choice in this meta. I do like the 7-drop Lin in most yellow decks, honestly. And then I did want to talk about, with Bon Clay, he's crucial. There's no other card really like him. And after doing a lot of thinking, there's a couple cards that if you really can't afford Bon Clay, I think, and I'm interested in your guys' thoughts, because these were the only 2 cards I can think of that could possibly kind of soften the pain of not having Bon Clay, because I know he is expensive. There is this Basil Hawkins, which you want him off of trigger, add 1 card from your Dawn deck and rest it. He is a 4-cost, 2,000 power, so not a super good card, and he's a counter though, but he does get you an active Dawn. And then the one that I thought was a little more viable, but honestly, I think it's probably kind of expensive still, is Ein from the Starter Deck 5. On play, add 1 non from your Dawn deck and rest it. It's a 4-cost, 5k body. It's a pretty solid card. I definitely know that when I play RP Law and I have Ein in my deck, I always get them when I don't have counter, and they have no counter. So I feel like those are the only other cards that could possibly replace Bon Clay. Another option I feel like to add to your deck would be the Queen blocker. If you feel like you're running low on cards, I think Queen can go in almost any purple deck. But those are kind of the cards that I would recommend. Personally, maybe the 4-cost Law, especially if you're playing a lot of like green Utas and other yellow decks that have giant hands. I know in my NL game, my opponent had a giant hand, and I wish I had something that could rip cards out of his hand. But those are my personal thoughts on the deck and how I build my deck and stuff. So I'm definitely interested to know what you guys think and how you guys build your deck, or if you guys agree or disagree with some of my options or things like that. But this was a fun video. I spent a couple days trying to think about what cards would work and how to, like, you know, cards that could replace Bon Clay if you absolutely needed to, and just kind of talk how I wanted to talk about the deck. And yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing your guys' feedback, honestly, and I'm hoping that we can make together with what I know of the deck and what your guys' thoughts and ideas and all that good stuff. Then we can make a pretty comprehensive purple yellow Croc guide, and hopefully get more purple yellow Croc players out there, because I have played a lot of One Piece decks, and purple yellow Croc is one of the most fun One Piece decks I've played. So my deck list will be in the description below, so you can pop it into the sim and play it yourself. But yeah, purple yellow Croc is definitely one of the most fun decks in the game currently. What tier is it? Maybe B tier, maybe A tier. I'm not really sure. I'm interested to see what you guys think. But yeah, that'll do it for me, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I had a lot of fun making it, and I hope you guys learned a little bit watching it, and I hope you guys actually go ahead and try playing some purple yellow Croc. But that'll do it for me, so I will see you guys in the next video. Have a wonderful rest of your day.